There has been so much conversation around what aren't the Flames doing and what they're doing wrong, but what has gone right this offseason to make us believe?
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jessica Belmosto of Locked On Flames and the Win Column. I'm so happy to be here with you on this fine Friday. I hope you're all having a fantastic wrap up of the week. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. Today, we're going to be talking about really what's gone right for the Flames this offseason. It's the end of July. They still haven't traded Rasmus Andersson. Free agency has opened and it was relatively quiet, which isn't a bad thing. And we're going to kick it off with talking about the draft and just replenishing the prospect pool, because that is where a lot of this rebuilding and fresh talent is going to come into play. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcast, as well as YouTube. We are here for you through the off season. We are down to 3 days a week for now, but don't you worry. We will be back to 5 days before you know it. All right, let's talk about the draft, because this was something that really left a lot of people kind of perturbed, I guess, because obviously the Flames didn't have their own first round pick this year. It was Montreal's, which they had traded back when they traded Sean Monahan, which feels like a million years ago. But ultimately, instead of picking 16th, they picked 18th with New Jersey's first round pick from the Jacob Markstrom trade. And then again at 32nd with the Florida Panthers pick from the Matthew Tkachuk trade. Ultimately, it wasn't a bad draft. The first round, and obviously, like, there's more outside of that, but Cole Reshny and Cullen Potter are both pretty solid players from what I understand. Cole Reshny was the best center available at 18, so they took him. And I think that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of talk around Cullen Potter because he is playing at Arizona State. So I'm not really sure what the development is going to look like for him there. And because number one, he can't sign an ELC if he still wants to play in college. So if he puts that on, he'll play there. But then he's also still too young to play in the AHL. So it truly is in his best interest to stay in college. Otherwise, it's useless. Quite honest. Unless the Flames find an immediate need for him in their NHL lineup. But due to the overflowing amount of forwards that they have, I don't think that that's going to be the case. And he might be a little bit further down on the depth chart than what the Flames have envisioned. But they're replenishing the cupboards. This Wranglers team has been good. But obviously, players have graduated. We have watched Connor Zary, Martin Pospisil, Matt Coronado, Matthew Phillips, Jacob Pelletier, did I say Dustin Wolf already? Graduate to the NHL level, whether they're still with the Flames or not. Like, those players have graduated and moved on. We've seen, Solo and Kuznetsov kind of, they're playing more NHL minutes. And you as desperately as you need to restock the NHL cabinet, you also need to keep the prospect pool fresh. And with the mess that Craig Conroy inherited, I would say that he is doing a very good job and is on a good start to replenishing the Flames prospect pool. They have good players in the AHL and NHL. And I'm hopeful that they will take, this next generation and properly develop them and get them to the NHL, because I don't necessarily want, a Rory Curran's situation where it took way too long for him to make his NHL debut, or Matthew Phillips, who never played a game as a Flame, just as a Wrangler. That both of those moves come to mind in particular, because it feels like massive misuse. Now, Matthew Phillips has not panned out as an NHLer, but you don't know that until you try them in your system. So I think being good in the AHL does not immediately translate to being good in the NHL, the same way that being good in college hockey or juniors like everybody's development is different. Everyone's timeline is different, and everyone's development is different. And that's why you can't treat, let's say, like Matt Coronado the same way as you treated Jacob Pelletier, and why you can't treat Zayne Parekh the same way that you've treated Solo. They are very different caliber players, and you have to look at things from a wider lens. I don't think it's fair to, paint everyone with the same brush. Okay, just because you had to play 4 AHL seasons before you made your NHL debut does not mean the guy you're coaching has to do that. You kind of get what I'm saying? Like, there are rite of passages, but you can't be stubborn and let that like old hockey mentality get in the way. And I feel like we are moving a little bit away from that. So hopefully that stays that way. But at the end of the day, the Flames are replenishing that stock. They have Zayne Parekh. They have Aydar Suniev. They have Hunter Brustowicz. They have Cole Reshney. They have Colin Potter, Henry Mews. Like, there are a lot of players, Misa, that are coming through the system. And they're on track, which is important. Now it's up to Craig Conroy and the rest of the NHL roster construction situation to make sure that they are properly integrated when the time comes. And coming up next, we are going to talk about what helps making that integration a little bit easier with a very quiet free agency. I want to tell you guys about an app that has honestly changed the way that I manage every paycheck, all of my finances, and the way that has helped me become more aware. And do you ever wish that managing your money felt easier? And with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So, in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I clear as day see how much money I was spending on takeout at lunch instead of packing my own lunch, as well as subscriptions and where I could be saving money or putting money into my savings account to hopefully save for a home. And it's honestly been an eye-opener. And I think twice before swiping my debit card. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year. Thanks everyone for tuning into today's episode of Locked On Flames. Make sure you are following the show wherever you get your favorite podcast, as well as YouTube. I was so happy when 12:01 hit on July 1st, and I did not see anything ridiculous from Calgary. I think the most unexpected signing would have to be Joel Hanley. I thought that it was going to be a situation where they let him walk after they should have traded him at the trade deadline, but that's not my decision. So that extension felt kind of unexpected. But everything else feels okay. Like I'm looking, like I looked at signings since July 1st of UFAs, and it's just kind of like par of the course. Either way, Conroy has a very good read on where the Flames are at. He did not, this is 2 years in a row where he has not handed out giant contracts to 27, 28-year-old, 29-year-olds, and is using the resources that he has in-house or short-term UFAs to plug holes. And right now, that's really what the Flames need. They just need placeholders. And I think that a lot of their roster, while it is made up of veterans, there are obviously placeholders. Like, to me, Martin Pospisil is a placeholder. Michael Backlund, kind of a placeholder because it's likely his last season. Ryan Lomberg and Justin Kirkland, like truly that whole fourth line is a placeholder. That third line with Backlund, Klapka, and Pospisil, depending on how you do it, that kind of feels like a placeholder too. So you have spots opening up over the next few years, and you have the players that can fill it. There's a reason behind Conroy's madness, and there's a method to it in everything, which I myself get very caught up in, like the, oh my God, this feels so dumb. The Flames are not in a position where they can go out and trade for Mitch Marner. That is not going to do, like, yes, that moves the needle significantly, but it puts the Flames back in Delulu land. They need to focus on not making these big, rash decisions and putting the cart before the horse. They have a young prospect pool. They have enough veterans locked up long term. They aren't doing anything that's making me scratch my head. Do I feel like they could have let Justin Kirkland walk? Yeah, they could have. Is it nice to kind of see them give him this, little redemption tour? Yeah, I think that's great. And he's a great option to have. He's a great tool to have in your toolbox. And I like that they went with him over, some other options. However, there are still players that I want to see at the NHL level. Like, I want to see what Rory Currens does. I want to see what, Aydar Suniev can bring to the lineup. Obviously, I know he's not a center, but it's still like the shuffling around that could happen. What has been so astonishing to me is the difference in a Brad Treliving and a Craig Conroy free agency. You do not see Conroy going out there and signing, 34, 35, 36-year-olds to the veteran minimum contract for, 2 years and taking a roster spot away from younger players. Where I think back to when Nick Ritchie, Brett Ritchie, Lucic, Trevor Lewis was fine. And I'm trying to think who else was on that Flames fourth line with them. But players that are on the roster and are signed to contracts have earned them. And I think we're going to see a lot of people really fighting for a spot on that opening night roster. And I understand that. And that's good. You need to have healthy competition within the organization. And they're doing that. They are focusing on what's at home. It's like when you ask your mom if she can stop at McDonald's and she's like, no, we have dinner at home. Like, yeah, it kind of feels disappointing that you can't go out there and get like the coolest new thing on the market, but you have stuff at home that you can really focus on and put your effort into. I don't hate what Craig Conroy has done for the Flames. I think that he has done considerably well given the circumstances. Again, let's remember what he inherited. I don't blame Brad Treliving for leaving. In fact, I probably thank him because Conroy has been a little more aggressive and will actively pursue options rather than just lip service. And I don't think that Conroy is afraid to push back, which is very important because at the end of the day, when you don't have ownership that has boots on the ground, it's hard to see. It's hard to get a real read of where things are. But coming up next, we're going to talk about Rasmus Andersson and just kind of how the Flames have handled this and why it's going to be okay and why it's going well this offseason. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're following the show wherever you get your favorite podcasts and YouTube, and make sure you are following me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. We are going to wrap up the show here with some Rasmus Andersson talk and why the Flames exploring the market now or this offseason, since the season has ended, is a good thing because it is so easy to just get caught up in it and be like, they have done nothing. He won't waive his no trade clause. He won't waive for this team. Why do they want this player instead as the return? Like, I get it. I do, because I find myself in that. But then I stop and think, you know what? I'm not smarter than every GM out there. Because if I was, I wouldn't be hosting this hockey podcast. Probably doing a little bit more with my life. But the Flames do not need to rush this. Should they have explored trading in their last season's deadline? 100%. 1 billion%, because then you don't have to worry about extending. The team that he's going to has a year and a half to figure that nonsense out. And that's, again, I get why they didn't, but as always, hindsight is 2020. This team is so focused on not messing up the vibes. And it's like kind of like walking on eggshells when it comes to like pulling a Jenga block, when it comes to the veterans you might trade. One wrong move and it could come tumbling down. But I really don't think it's that unstable. I think that players understand that this is a business. Rasmus Andersson made it very clear in his end of the season media availability. This is a business. He understands what has to get done. And it's not like trading him means you are bringing like a horrendous locker room guy into the mix. Could you? Sure. But I really don't think the Flames are that stupid. I don't. I think they've learned their lesson. Or so I'd like to believe. Nothing surprises me anymore. But anyways, the fact that there was something lined up with LA and it didn't go through because he wouldn't waive. Okay. Cool. Don't know why you wouldn't want to live in sunny California after living in Calgary the last 10 years, but what do I know? And I'm sure it has to do with taxes. Actually, just kidding. I have no idea. He probably just didn't want to lose to Edmonton in the playoffs again. But teams are not willing to give up the assets that the Flames want unless he will extend. And I get it from both sides. I get why you'd want a lot for Andersson, or you want what you want for him. And I get why you're not giving that up if you're only getting him for 6 months. Why should you empty your cupboard or give up a first-round draft pick, especially if it's a 2026 first-round draft pick, when there's no guarantee? Could things potentially be a little better when the season starts? Yeah, of course. And really, at the end of the day, anyone can change their mind. Rasmus Andersson could say, a few weeks ago, oh yeah, no, I don't want to go to LA. And then say 2 weeks from now, he could have like a dream. It all comes to him in a dream. Or after talking with his wife and his family and his agent, and maybe he did some research on his own and about the housing and situation. I don't know what hockey players have to take into consideration other than a house. Like, truly, I don't know. All jokes aside, he could wake up and say, you know what? I think that this is the best decision. This team is a contender. I could really accomplish a lot there over the next 7 years of my career. They are willing to pay me X amount of dollars. And I'll be part of a winning culture. It is always the possibility. Like nothing would surprise me, because when you look at these players, you have to remember that they're human beings too. And I know that when it comes to changing jobs, there are a lot of things that I think about. Granted, I'm not making millions and millions of dollars, but what does a city or an organization have to offer me? You want me to be traded to Vancouver, who have had nothing but rumors and horrible PR for the last 3 seasons? I'm good. And who are also in a weird rebuild phase? Oh, you want me to go to the Minnesota Wild, who are also in a weird mix of things? A situation that's not too different from what I'm dealing with the Flames? No. Okay, you're throwing out, a team like the Hurricanes. They're, typically always contending. Okay, Columbus, sure. They are on their way up. Montreal, on their way up. There's still room to grow, but my presence there as a leader and a veteran would do good things. Dallas, no income tax, and a contender. Vegas, same situation. I think we avoid a Noah Hanifin situation. And I know I've been going back and forth on that since those reports initially came out. But I am choosing to believe that the Flames are not going to find themselves in a Vegas or bust situation. And maybe they can send Miromanov back with Andersson. That'd be neat. So at the end of the day, it's been a quiet offseason. There's still work to be done. But there's still not even silver linings. Like, there are very good things that have happened. And it's important to remember that. And I tweeted last night saying the Flames haven't done anything that's going to convince me that this season's going to be any different. And that's partially true. Because I haven't seen anything. One way or another. Like, I don't necessarily think the Flames are going to be better than they were, but I don't know if they're going to be worse than they were. So, that's something to think about over the weekend. And that'll do it for me here on this episode of Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for hanging out. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe. Stay off the internet. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on the internet that just isn't worth your time to engage with. Put on like your favorite hockey movie. It's supposed to be super hot here this weekend, so I will be sitting by the lake and hopefully waiting for a Rasmus Andersson has been traded tweet notification. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday through the off season or through the regular season, and we are here for you 3 days a week during the off season. And I will catch you all on Monday.